Howdy, CIS102. Welcome to session 2. Every week, what I'll do is provide you with kind of a recap, an introduction. That's even more correct, is an introduction. I can't quite use that arm to point at you yet, and I'll try not to make that face. An introduction as to what it is to expect for the week. So every introduction starts with a recap. Maybe that's where I got that from previously. So what I'll tell you is the following. Number one, last week, most everybody got signed up successfully for my IT lab. The biggest issue anybody encountered was not remembering to avoid Chrome. Now, I know we have probably spent the last couple of years telling each and every one of you to abandon Internet Explorer. I am perfectly happy with you abandoning Internet Explorer. But for the purposes of my IT lab, which is where a vast majority of your assignment points totals are going to come from, the best option is to use Firefox. So whether or not you are on a Mac or a PC, use Firefox. Now, please, for anybody who is using a Mac, you cannot tell this right now, but this is actually an iPad that I'm recording this on. It is looped over here into a Mac. My main desktop over there is a Mac. I'm a Mac person. I think you can probably see Beats over here because they just work with my Macs. I will tell you, if you have a Mac, please reach out soon so that we can discuss what you'll need to do and when. There's really only one group of assignments that you cannot do on a Mac, and that's Access, and that comes much later in the semester. I believe it's like the first and second weeks in November, so we have quite some time, but I don't want us to wait until then if you do have a Mac. So that's a little bit of our recap from last week, was just the introductions via Eagle and signing up for my IT lab. For everybody, I also released 2 surveys for you to take. Survey number 1 was what kind of format you wanted for the course. Survey number 2 was, irrespective of what your answer to that was, what day of the week would work for you if we were to hold a regular, like a Zoom class on. And what I'll tell you is today is Monday, because it's the last day of the last day of the week, essentially. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold that open for one more day. I will take that instead of closing Saturday night. I didn't get enough responses to make like a quorum. I couldn't get half of you to respond. So I'm going to keep that open for just a couple more hours here through the end of today. And at the end of today, to heck with anybody who didn't respond. That is the answer we're going to go with. So if you have not already taken that survey, or those surveys rather, please go ahead and do that. So rather than look back, now let's look forward into what it is we have for the rest of this particular session. Number 1, we have some work to do in my IT lab. Now, here in Eagle, where this particular video is located, and where all the content that I produce is located, so everything in my IT lab we buy off the shelf for you guys. Everything in Eagle is stuff that I put together for you guys. We've got breadcrumbs, I call them, in there that essentially walk you through what to expect in my IT lab. For anybody who's ever used, frankly, even Eagle or any other online platform before, my IT lab is really very, very similar. I mean, they're all a little bit different, right? But they all kind of feel the same. what I'll tell you about my IT lab is that's where the bulk, again, of your assignments are located. And you should look to my IT lab for the assignment calendar. It's the easiest way. What I have found is if I put assignments from my IT lab into Eagle, what that ends up doing is cluttering out all of the rest of your classes because, every reading assignment, every audio, every PowerPoint, things that you may or may not choose to investigate are listed then. What ends up happening is, let's say you're taking two classes, right? CIS102, and I'll just pick another one of my classes, CIS170. What ends up happening is CIS102 is listed first because it is the alphabetically first and it is numerically first. So for this week, for example, there are just over a dozen things listed, but they're not all things that you have to do. They're things that are there as a supplement to your learning. So for instance, for chapter 1, there are chapter 1 PowerPoints. That's 1. There are chapter 1 audio presentations. That's 2. There are chapter 1 audio presentation. So it's a video. That's 3. There's reading material from the text if you went with the e-text. That's 4. There are a couple, they're called quizzes. Please do not confuse them with quizzes. They are just little bite-sized ditties, 5, 6, 7 questions like, did you read this type stuff? So that's listed as number 5. Number 6 comes listed along with that with the review from the second part of the chapter. You kind of get the idea. And what ends up happening, I've gotten feedback from students that what happens is those calendar items push all of your other courses' calendar items down. And sooner or later, you end up missing things from your other classes because my course chews up that whole listing you have for the calendar. So rather than do that, I know each of you is capable of doing the following mental gymnastics. Oh, my CIS102 stuff is in my IT lab. I'll check Eagle for everything else. Perfect. That's really all you need to be able to do for that. There are in the breadcrumbs, actually we call them in this one, there are data dumps. Data dump is just what you would find in the computer science industry. It's essentially, here's a lump of stuff that you need to look through. That's why it's called a dump. I know it's not a very, what do you call that? It's not a very aesthetic term, right? Anytime you use dump in a sentence, you're like, oh, this is a dump. Well, it just happens to be what the industry calls it. So in the data dump, you will see audio and video for chapters 1 and 2, and that is listed here alongside of this video for the session. So this session 2, you will look to, I'm looking over there at my PC, it's actually a Mac, but you get the idea. You will look to My IT Lab and the My IT Lab calendar, which you can find out how to do in Breadcrumbs, which is located here in Eagle. So far, so good, guys. Everybody survived session 1. And quite frankly, this year, that's a hell of a start. So let's keep moving.